Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar today on shifting perspectives, adapting to the three generations in our workforce. I want to thank each of you for taking the time out of your day to join us, and I want to make sure that this webinar is as valuable as possible to you. All right, so this is what we know. There are three generations of workers who have converged in the workplace. We know that technology is changing faster than ever and has fundamentally changed how we interact and work with each other. Canada is at a critical turning point, but companies are still lagging behind when it comes to adopting new technology. To figure out why that is, we went coast to coast and we did a study to understand the different generations, to understand the different sets of values, what drives us, the expectations we have on how we work, and each group's differing views on leadership. You can see the results of the study at www.shiftingvalues.ca, but today we want to focus on the HR perspective. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Karen Heatwell. Karen is the Vice President of SAP's Human Capital Management Center of Excellence. She's been serving with SAP for 15 years, helping customers optimize HR strategy and programs with technology. Karen lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and it is our pleasure to have her join us today. Karen?
Thanks so much, Ash. We appreciate it, and thank you to all of the attendees on the line for tuning into this webinar. Ash asked me if I would say a few words about why SAP commissioned the study that we're about to discuss here today. So here's why. At SAP, we have an enormous customer base running our human capital management solutions, from core HR, payroll, talent management, to analytics and mobile solutions. In fact, well over 13,000 companies run SAP HR. So we believe it's imperative that we stay current and up to date on changing perspectives in the workforce, changing trends in HR, and the associated impact on what technologies we deliver and what solutions we deliver to the marketplace. One thing that's clear today is that our workforces are changing, and they're communicating and getting their jobs done in a much different method than they have in the past. We all know and experience an overflow of digital information, and we want flexible access to that information and ways to communicate that fit the way we work in our world today. So employees have a huge vesting in what we deliver here at SAP, and workers' patience for slow, disconnected, or manual processes is less than it's ever been, and the need for staying in communication and connected is at a premium. So it's clear to us that this applies to not only younger workers, but also the entire workforce and the growing proportion of the workforce that has shifted their working styles to this way in general. And at SAP, we're all about helping organizations run better HR. We believe that applies to the entire spectrum of work that workers face in the workforce today. So with that, I'd like to turn it back to Ash to go ahead and kick off the discussions that we have on the study itself. Thanks so much, Ash.
Thank you, Karen. I'd like to introduce everyone to James Alexander, our Senior Vice President at Infotech. James has been both an entrepreneur and an executive in the technology industry over the past 25 years. Today, he helms Infotech's Vendor Services Division and providing data-driven, research-based advice to the vendor community. James?
Well, thank you, Ash, and thank you, everyone, for taking the time out to be with us today. You know, it's no surprise to anyone on the phone, as Ash said off the top, technology has fundamentally changed how we interact with each other. There are several key trends that are reshaping how we collaborate with our peers and how we behave, both in the workplace and as consumers. One of the key factors driving these changes is the rise of anytime access to information. The Internet, through various channels, enables real-time access to data that in turn both accelerates the speed of our collaboration and fundamentally alters our decision-making process. Add to this the generational shifts occurring in society and it's clear that across organizations, leaders need to adapt their style to appeal to the shifting perspectives of their workforce and the changes in the way technology is used. As workers from different generations engage with one another, the effective leader must understand how to motivate, provide vision, and develop skills that apply to each while maintaining the momentum of the organization. The Canadian workforce shares many commonalities, such as a shared focus on job satisfaction, desire for career development, and interest in applying their creativity and innovation to on-the-job tasks. Yet leaders must also address dissimilar views on managing work-life balance, cultivating team dynamics, and technology fluency. This study was commissioned by SAP Canada and independently conducted by Infotech. The study was based on two pieces of field research. The first, a web-based survey of 500 Canadians, and the second, a telephone interview with professionals in human resources, sales and marketing, and procurement. Let's talk now a little bit about what we assumed going in and some of the high-level findings. So going in, we assumed that the workplace is changing, and therefore how businesses attract and retain talent needs to change as well. And in fact, we found this to be true. Canadians want leadership that speaks to their generation. Second, it's no surprise and a well-documented fact that Canadian businesses are falling behind in productivity, both to their American cousins and to other nations around the world. What we found was that Canadians are making productivity investments, but they're just not always aligned with the actions needed for sustained gains. And we'll talk about how training plays a part in that. And third, we assume that Canadian consumers to be heavy users of technology, Web 2.0, and social media. And in fact, that is true, and mobility and social connections have a strong influence on technology decisions, not just at home, but at work as well. So I mentioned there are some differences and there are some commonalities. Let's start with some of the differing perspectives. So we'll take a look at the views Canadians hold both in their personal and their work lives. And I'll start with the boomer generation. For the purposes of our study, we define this as those born between 1946 and 1966. They, or perhaps I should say we, form about 25% of the workforce today. Not surprisingly, most boomers have a pretty traditional view of the separation between work and home. They believe in working together, and face-to-face is their preferred method, both as buyers and in dealing with their own customers. It's the personal touch that matters to them. The next group we'll look at are the Gen Xers, who comprise about half of today's workforce. And these folks were born between 67 and 82. For this group, work-life balance is important, and that's not surprising given where they are in life in terms of raising a family. They're active users of technology, but they're not out there in the social blogosphere without reservations with regards to security and privacy concerns. They worry that their organizations don't innovate quickly enough, and it's costing them customers. And they value an environment where they're given a set of responsibilities they can actively execute against. Finally, the remaining quarter of the workforce are the Gen Ys, who were born after 1983. They're truly the connected generation, and they are actively using technology both at work and at home. They too value collaboration, both with those they know, but also within the broader social media groups they belong to. They're eager to learn and embrace technology as a means for getting what they need when they need it. So while the generations differ in some ways, in terms of some of the fundamental needs and values, they're similar as well. All generations want to learn, want to share their experiences, and want to contribute. And each values leadership and vision from the people at the top of the organizations that write their paychecks. Let's examine some of these areas in greater detail. In terms of learning and growing in capabilities, Canadian workers see a need for more. Boomers worry that their firms lack a formal training plan for skills transfer to younger workers. And by the way, they're eager to share what they know. At the other end of the spectrum, those entering the workforce overwhelmingly want more, both in terms of traditional training and formal and informal mentoring programs. And as you can see, this feeling is shared by HR professionals, the majority of whom don't see their firm's training and education programs as adequate and don't feel their organization is prepared for the loss of the boomers as they retire over the next decade. Although financial markets being what they are, that may stretch out a bit. Technology solutions can definitely help to manage and execute against a better training program, but even here, many respondents reported that when technology solutions are implemented within the business, not enough training is provided to allow them to take advantage of these solutions in their day-to-day work. Leaders must also juggle the way different demographics go about their job and use technology. In our survey of over 500 Canadians, we found Gen Y workers tend to be connected and engaged. Gen X are pluralists and multitaskers, while the boomer generation relies on technology chiefly as an information gathering and process automation tool. Generation Y, by the way, expects technology to already be in place to support the work they do. And this has led to a trend everyone is talking about. We call it BYOD, bring your own device. They see no reason why the tools they use at work should be inferior to what they have at home. So they simply bring their personal technology and their way of doing things, including social media, into the workplace to perform double duty. And this brings us squarely to the issue of mobility. The fact of the matter is that work is no longer a place I go. It's an activity I do anywhere and anytime from any device. Some of the biggest things we hear about today, cloud computing, social media, the consumerization of IT and more, are a result of this fact. From a business perspective, to attract and retain your employees and to effectively communicate with your customers, you have to be able to support this activity. That means delivering robust and secure access to the tools and information your workforce needs, regardless of the when, where, and way they prefer to work. So to recap, our research covered the three generations in today's workforce. We looked at their attitudes and expectations, their values and perspectives. We examined how they use technology as a consumer and as a professional, and as part of their daily activities, wherever, whenever, and however they find themselves interacting with others. We also looked at the role of productivity and how companies are innovating and delivering customer value through the use of technology to empower their workforce. So what do we say to Canadian businesses? What's our advice? Well, first and foremost, your people are looking for leadership in terms of understanding the values of your organization and in career development. Let's face it, we're all competing for the best talent moving forward, so it's not enough to recruit. You must develop them, and that means career planning and ongoing investment in skills development and training. While you may need different schemas to support the needs of people from different generations and at different career stages, their underlying needs are the same. Second, support them through the use of technology. It's not simply an efficiency tool or a system for doling out rewards and punishment. Say this twice. Your employees will drive innovation you can't imagine if you give them the right tools. Finally, we live in a connected world where decisions need to be made on the fly and transactions occur in real time. You need not only to connect your employees, but to integrate the disparate processes in the organization. This, we truly believe, is the next frontier in terms of business innovation. Engage your employees to do this. You will both empower them and surprise yourself at how they'll help you make exponential gains in productivity. Before I turn it over to my colleague Susanna, let me just spend a moment on the particular perspective of the human resource professionals we interviewed. And I'll do it from two angles, from recruitment and from ongoing management of their needs. So first, in terms of talent recruitment, half of those we spoke with said their organization had no formal strategy for executing this essential function. Further, in terms of the means of recruitment, they tended to rely on traditional resources such as referrals, job boards, and recruiters. Less than 20% use social media. When you contrast this to what we know about Gen Y, clearly this needs to change. As they say, it's always more effective to fish where the fish are. Second, when it comes to developing talent and ensuring that people have the right skills, HR professionals agreed with the employees within their organizations. While 80% have some sort of employee portal, it probably exists as a repository of information, just like the old employee file folder. Systems for career planning, education and training, and performance management are lacking. As one HR professional put it, we have some tools, but we have to train ourselves in order to serve our customers. So with those observations, thanks for your time, and I'll hand it back to Ash.